Hi, Deborah K here, part 2 of my special 9/11 edition of Simply Stated, Season 3 on who was Charlie Kirk, conservative activist. Some of you may not actually have known who he was. My video got cut off while I was filming the last segment, and so I'm just going to continue on with what I was saying. Notably, the news has also gone to the point of pandering to bizarre hysteria opinions pages on the conservative side and probably on the left of saying this is time to start a war because Charlie was killed. And Greg Gutfeld, actually, the Five, said that while holding a poop cup. So I don't think anyone's actually going to get really upset and start a war over Charlie Kirk being shot. I'm kind of weirded out by a number of media stories covering him, though, because he wasn't someone that was actually really that well known. So this is obviously all paid media coverage. Here's the other facts about Charlie Kirk. First of all, he wasn't a 31-year-old. He was around my age. He was in his 40s. And he was very much a target of El Tren de Aragua, but I think based on his behavioral attitudes that he actually may have had some form of dementia. And frankly was being controlled by the El Tren de Aragua cult, which is also a military group out of Venezuela and Russian. So it explains a lot, but it seems more than anything that the Turning Point USA was just set up to defend some of these guys who've been really crazy, weird predators. I don't know what the lefty version of that is, but I would not have called it a conservative organization. I would actually have called it a leftist group. You know, you want to start throwing out the term lefty because it's never used correctly in the US media or Australian media or anywhere else. A lefty is actually just a euphemism for someone that's a communist. And I think that was actually a lot of Charlie's issue. The other reality is that for all we know, the wife wasn't... He's supposed to be living the American dream with the wife and the kid. For all we know, the kid wasn't his and it was trafficked. The wife was cheating on him and literally sleeping with everyone she could find, which is very common in those cult groups, especially the Russian FSB and El Tren de Aragua. They're going to demand that your spouse sleep with other people and may not even really belong to you. You could literally be labor trafficked to death. Look, I was forced into a marriage that I didn't want to a person that went on and became what he thinks in his head is some big movie star. And he literally slept with anyone and everyone that were leaders in the Russian FSB, including the woman you knew as Carol Corey. By the way, going forward with the shows, I'm not going to stop anymore and use fake names. I'm just going to use the aliases these people are reinventing in the U.S. Since those were fake names anyway, so we might as well use those. I'm saying this guy lied about his age. I'm saying, for all we know, the wife was some weird whore who slept with everyone. And the kid may not have been his, and the guy may not have remembered living anything near the American dream. And I say that, and I'm like, kind of catching myself saying it because I remember how horrifying some of the situations I saw in the Washington, D.C. area were. I also see how ridiculous some of the people that have bought into this crap with Endeavor and trying to keep it with fame have made themselves. And on 9/11, which is the day that will live in our minds, for those of us from the United States who actually care about these issues forever, you know, I still think of my mother who died trying to stop it. And she was killed trying to stop it. She was in the process of trying to get a divorce from a really nasty man. And he was tied in with the same people that caused 9/11, and she was killed. Violently. She didn't need to die the way she did. And as far as the rest of the situation, we're going to talk about this very deeply here for a second. The FBI, the Department of Labor, and the U.S. military knew that El Tren de Aragua and one of their members, who goes by the name Fatina, sometimes she also goes by the name Heather, sometimes she goes by the name Kendall. She was also Jackie Wilkie at Luther College in Iowa. She stood on the staff as one of the professors. Remember, the Russian FSB and also El Tren de Aragua said in 2024 that she was going to kill him. This was when TMZ was up here. I was working at Panera Bread, and there's absolutely no reason to think that she didn't go ahead and shoot him. She's a really nasty, violent activist. Tulsi Gabbard herself has known this person at least since the 90s in Janesville, Wisconsin. She used to go by the name Susan Clutson herself. She was married to Dr. Clutson, and he divorced her for being a lunatic that got involved with MS-13. And Carol Corey, the woman you know is Carol Corey, who goes by other names today and actually is also Anna Popov. Oh no, wait a minute. Let's reverse that. Kendall's actually Anna Popov. Carol was Svetlana Popov. So, as far as names they once had, at least in Russia. So, what I'm saying is, the FBI, Department of Labor, the Department of Justice, and the U.S. military knew this guy had threats against him from El Tren de Aragua. Where was his security even yesterday? Like, I can't take this story because there's so many people I've known that have suffered or are suffering. I myself am fleeing weird violence in Traverse City and trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life right now. You know, I'm a working person. I generally work for a living. I really don't make my money off of doing journalism. And I'm telling you, this guy was caught up with a bunch of weirdos in the cultists around Endeavor when I was 13, El Jalisco, and Nicaragua that basically oftentimes convince people to make a lot of money or come into possession of a lot of it and then die or get themselves killed or be labor trafficked and then get killed. And I would not assume for 1 second that he was someone who was mentally stable or living the American dream. Not based on what I saw, not based on the little I knew of him, because I only met him that one time when he freaked out and seemed like he needed medication. And frankly, the other sources I talked to didn't think he was sane either. We actually laughed about it. And so, worst of all might be the story yesterday that came out from, was it Fox News, tried to say that he was a close friend of President Trump and close to the White House, but then quickly corrected it to say that he wasn't actually a White House staffer. People, the news is weird. It's too weird. And you just got to spend some more time thinking about what you're even watching. Because a lot of you probably don't even know who he is. And it wouldn't be past El Nicaragua or Endeavor Corporation to just simply have the guy killed over the money they came in possession of. But there's also the fact that he was pretty clearly a Russian obfuscationist as far as his philosophy and the ideas he spread. He certainly really was an entertainer of any kind. I used to serve on the Washington Times editorial board. I published multiple analytical papers. I was part of the crowd of people in Washington, D.C. that did actual economic research and writing. He wasn't somebody that would have been respected by any of us. So whatever you're seeing out there in the news about him, remember this stuff is actually being paid for and pretty heavily out of the money from his group and from these other donors, Peter Thiel and Foster Friess. And the reality is the group appears to have been basically founded on the premise of not academic freedom, but actually stopping the rest of us who would want to be able to go to school and not be bothered by MS-13, El Tren de Aragua, or El Jalisco. And that a member of one of those groups decided they were going to kill him back in 2024. And she had recently stated that, and I have actually reported this person myself. And the U.S. government, whether it's been local to Michigan or at the federal level, decided to just let it go. And his own security decided to just let it go yesterday. And the guy got shot. That's what happened. That's what's going on. This has been another special edition of Simply Stated here on YouTube at Deborah KC, DEBORAH KYC. Thank you. And please, for all of you who are, memories, thoughts today at 9/11, for all of you, it's always a day that I think of my mom and remember her life.